We are now video casting along with podcasting, so you can hear us, you can see us, you can talk to us.
Sound like a TV show.
We will be talking about the Coaches Roundtable.
And I see half of the game here, half of the game there, because I want to get eyes on these teams that we're ranking. Welcome in to another version of the Extra Point. Jeff Goring for the Ute Conference here, and we have a special guest today, John. John, did you shave today?
No, I didn't shave.
We got John and we got Marcus over there behind the scenes.
Marcus the cat.
John Thunder Halliburton and Marcus the cat. Marcus, come on into this picture. What does Marcus the cat mean?
Hold on.
I have no idea. It was just now designated to me.
Oh, wow. Well, Marcus will be on another edition here shortly as we bring to you a new segment called Broadcast Ready. We're going to teach you, or he's going to teach you. I'm not teaching anything. You know, old dogs don't teach new tricks. But we're going to bring you a new segment called Broadcast Ready. We're going to teach you how to get the most out of these things, your phones, your video, your iPod systems. So, John, we've got a lot of things going on. It's been a while since we've been on, and we're going to take care of a couple episodes here today. But June 3rd, we've got the kickoff of Uctv. Are you ready, John?
I'm ready.
Are you going to be tuning in?
I'm going to be tuning. Jeff's going to be doing autographs.
I heard you're going to be doing the sounding board and bloopers and those other things with Vicky. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, Vicky. me and Vicky have a dance routine.
All right.
Have a dance routine going.
June 3rd, the kickoff of Uctv. Also, we're going to be having a blood drive right here at the Ute Conference offices. Guys, it's our turn to give back. We get so much. We give so much. It's our turn. So you're going to be hearing more about this in the next 30 days. But June 3rd, from 2 o'clock till 7 o'clock, we're going to try and blow the doors off of the American Red Cross and give a lot of blood. Our kids give it on the field. It's time for the parents, coaches, volunteers to step up. So June 3rd, a lot of things coming on. Also, our coaches certification is live. It is live. Get on there, coaches. There's going to be some glitches. If you have a problem, go to support at ucfootball.tv. ucfootball.tv. Support at. Okay? Now, we have an incredible guest, John, and it's not Marcus. What are you laughing for? We have an incredible guest. You know, back in 2020, we played 1,500 football games during COVID. You know, we were told that we were going to have blood on our hands, that we were going to kill kids, that football couldn't be done, that it wasn't going to be safe. It's kind of sad. And Vicky and I, we dug our heels in and said, no, our kids need it because the downside effects. Well, our guest today is Todd Sylvester. Todd, thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for having me. This is an incredible opportunity, and I love what you guys are doing, and it's just great to be here with you.
Well, thank you very much, but we want to hear from you. We don't want to hear from me, and we definitely don't want to hear from John. And the cat over there? Psst. Okay. Todd went to Brighton High School. I followed Todd and Rich and the guys as you came up. Fellow Bengal here, had an incredible run in basketball, but then tragedy hit your life. And I just want you to know he has a website, toddinspires.com, and a podcast. It's called The Belief Cast. But Todd's story wasn't much different than that COVID story, where we were so concerned about kids being shut down, locked down, turning to things like alcohol, drugs, depression, anxiety. And so we invited Todd in here because this is what he speaks about. I mean, to give you an idea, 1,500 speaking events, 17,000 coaching sessions.
Yeah.
He's a mental illness
Mental
fitness coach. Mental fitness. Thank you.
Mental illness, sure. It's all the same, really.
But what caught my eye was, we're friends on Facebook, was your story about the lemonade stand.
Yeah.
So tell us, take it away, Todd. Tell us why this is important to our kids and why, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds are really in that wheelhouse of age group for trying things.
Yeah, no, thank you. I am grateful to be able to talk to the kids because, I was obviously once a kid, and I know how hard it can be to be a kid these days, especially when we just get through this pandemic and there was a lockdown. And, we in my industry will say connection's the opposite of addiction, right? So lack of connection fuels addiction. And so, we saw that on the rise in the last couple of years on levels that I have never seen in my 30 years in doing this. And, anxiety and depression's off the chart, suicidal ideations and things like that are just off the charts right now. And so, and really that lack of connection was one of the major causes, this isolation piece. And so, I can relate with the kids. And so I hope that my story here will help, inspire them and to keep them going on the right track and doing the things that they're doing here with your program, which again is amazing.
Well, it inspired me, and it really did. It inspired me to say, I got to have Todd come tell his story, because this is real life.
Yeah.
And these kids are playing real life.
Yeah.
And when we went to Brighton High School, Brighton was a pretty good party school.
Oh yeah.
A lot of alcohol.
Yeah. Yep.
But it didn't just start at the high school level.
Yeah, so I took my first sip of alcohol when I was 11 years old. I didn't get drunk, but I kind of fell in love with the rush of it. At that time, basketball was my passion. It wasn't football, but sports in general. I did play football, and I played soccer, I played baseball, but basketball was the sport I loved the most. And I was very passionate about it.
And he was really good, by the way.
And
really
thank
good.
you. We had a great team too, which we'll get to in a minute. But I took my first sip of alcohol at 11, and at age 13, I smoked pot for the first time, and that opened the door to every other drug on the planet. And so I learned at a very young age I had this all or nothing mentality, and I was all in. Basketball was my thing, but I was also starting to party now and do those kind of things, and that led to, a full-blown addiction, which I didn't really realize until about my senior year. My senior year at Brighton, when things started to kind of unravel. If we take a step back, my sophomore year I played some varsity, but our varsity team took first in state. My junior year we took second in state. My senior year I was voted team captain with Rich and Eddie. And two other
Eddie
amazing,
McDaniel?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, two amazing
Guys, I'm
athletes.
showing my age.
Yeah.
I coached Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah. And these two guys that I was team, co-captains with, tri-captains with, were just amazing athletes, and it was great to be a part of that. But my senior year is when things started to kind of unravel. Even though we ended up taking first in state, that whole senior year, I noticed this voice in my head. And every kid out here listening to this right now, and every parent, we can all relate with this voice. Is that negative voice that tells us that we're no good, that we're different, so we can't connect. My problems are too big to even fix, or no one would even understand me. And so my value, at least in my own mind as a human, was very, very low. And I was very depressed. I walked around. The only time I felt somewhat normal was if I was getting high or drinking. And that led on through my whole senior year. I'd play a couple really good basketball games.
But you were an athlete. You were very popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how could you be depressed?
Yeah, on the outside it looked like I had everything, but the truth was I didn't, and I put on a mask like we all do sometimes. I put on a mask and I'm fine, everything's good, but underneath the surface I was struggling. I had anxiety so bad at some days where I couldn't even get out of bed. I had depression, and you name it. And again, that's why I started just having these feelings of not being around. And so after we took state, my senior year, a week later, I got offered a full ride scholarship. And that was one of my dreams as a kid. I wanted to play college basketball. So I'm like, man, I've got this dream in my hands. And so there's 2 months left of my senior year, and I went crazy, really, when it came to the party. And I went overboard, and I was drinking every night and smoking pot every day. And at this point, I'm doing cocaine, I'm doing mushrooms. Back then, Quaaludes was a big thing, and speed, crosstops, anything I could get my hands on. And I started getting this, I had this reputation at this point as a partier, and I was trying to live up to that reputation because I thought that's what, made me accepted. Despite even being the athlete, I just felt like I had kind of tried to carry on both personas, and ended up graduating by the skin of my teeth. And then about 2 weeks into the practice during that summer with the team I got the scholarship with, the coach pulls me into his office and sits me down and said, "What's going on?" And right when he said that, I knew I was in trouble. I wasn't playing well, mentally, spiritually, physically. I was a complete mess. And then I said, "Hey, Coach, I know I'm not playing well. Just please give me another chance. I promise I'll start working harder." And he says, "Todd, this is the big boy leagues, and we don't have time to mess around." And he goes, "And I hate to tell you this, but I'm taking away your scholarship." And Jeff, I was devastated. I was just like, I literally got on my knees and started crying and saying, "Coach, please don't do this. Give me another chance. I promise I'll try harder." And he says, "I'm sorry, the decision's been made." And when that happened, I thought, how am I going to tell my dad? Because he kind of lived through me through sports. He gave me every opportunity to be great at basketball. And then I thought, how am I going to tell all my friends? I've been bragging to everyone I got this scholarship. And now my life's being turned upside down, and I was devastated. And at that point, I became this kind of, angry, suicidal drunk. Every time I would drink, I'd punch holes in the wall. I would throw chairs through windows. And again, a complete mess. I ended up trying out at several other colleges and universities here in the state of Utah. Even outside the state, I tried out 3 or 4 there. I got cut from every one of them. Again, because I'm a complete mess. And then I found myself living in a home with 5 other guys. And I call it this nasty house we were living in because we did not clean it. It was nasty. And the reason why I point this out, especially for our listeners today, is that this house was an outward manifestation of my inner world, right? Our inner world is mirrored by our outer world. So if your outer world's a mess, it usually means your inner world's a mess. And I was a complete mess. And at this point, I'm a full-blown addict and alcoholic, and again, just not wanting to be alive. And so I'll never forget, it was a Thursday, and reality slaps me upside the head, and it was like, basketball is over, Todd. It's done. You're not playing college basketball. And that reality, because it was my identity, was the scariest thing at that time in my life. And that's when I decided I was going to end my life. And so,
What happened then?
well, so I planned it out, and this was a Thursday. Friday comes, and I'm driving down. This is down in Provo, Utah. If you don't know where that is, but most people listening probably do. But I'm driving down University Avenue, and right before you get on the freeway, there is Utah Valley Community College, which I was attempting to go to school there at the time, but I wasn't going to class. I was failing everything. But the reason why I point this out is, as I'm getting ready to get on the freeway to go home and end my life, I was going to do it. I had it all planned out. I decided to pull into the school because me and my friends would go hang out in the lunchroom, and we'd go sit at the big round tables they had in there. You'd sit like 12 people at a table, and me and my friends would always sit at the same table. Well, as we're sitting, so I walk in there, and as my friends were sitting there, I sit down, and I'm sitting there, and I'm in my own head thinking about what I'm going to go home and do, and everyone's in their own conversations. And there was these 2 girls sitting next to me that were talking about fasting and prayer. And I don't know if that's okay to talk about this on here. Whatever you guys believe, whatever your higher power may be. I didn't believe in God at the time. I didn't believe in a higher power. I just thought that was all nonsense. But I overheard these 2 girls talking about fasting and praying. And for some reason, that word fasting just hit me right in the heart. I was like, what is that? I had no clue what it was. But I wanted to know. There was something in me that said, figure out what that is. And anyway, as those 2 girls got up from the table to go to class, I stood up and followed behind them. I tapped them on the shoulder and I said, "Hey, were you guys just talking about fasting and prayer?" And they're like, "Why do you want to know?" Because they knew I was this partier and druggie. And I said, no, I really want to know, like, what is that? And they go on to explain what that is, you know, and I, as they were explaining it to me, I thought, what's the point of that? I just thought it was weird. Go the whole day without food and water. I'm like, what's the point? And one of the girls gets in my face and says, if you want help from God. And like I said, I didn't believe in God at the time, but when she said that, I thought, wow, is there a God, and would God help me? And so I decided to put it to the test. Instead of going home and ending my life, I went back to that nasty house I was living in. And it's now Saturday morning, and I do this fast and prayer thing that I'd never done before in my life. And I basically just asked God, higher power, universe, whatever you guys want to call it, and I asked for help. And a month later, I got the answer to that fast and prayer that changed the whole course of my life. But I still was struggling at that time, like in a rough shape.
Well, you don't just come off of this stuff.
Oh, no.
There's a process to coming off of it.
There's a big process. And even though I had this experience that was real amazing at the time, it was amazing. Like, I knew that I got an answer to that fast and prayer.
And what was that answer?
It was, usually God answers through other people. And it was actually my friend Rich, that we both know, reached out to me and said, hey, basically, we need you on our side today. And that's what I was prompted to tell you. And I was like blown away. And I don't know how to explain it, but I felt this feeling that I'd never felt before in my entire life. I thought, wow, I hadn't talked to Rich since high school. Now, I mean, this guy's been, he played at UC Davis, and he's now married, he's got kids, and he reaches out to me and just out of the blue basically answered my prayer. And when that happened, I was just like, unbelievable. And he ends up lining me up with a clergyman, and started meeting with this guy every week. And I didn't know it at the time, but this guy ended up being my rehab. But at the same time, Rich became my mentor. And Rich just kind of took me under his wing. And I'm still a mess, by the way. And what I mean by that is I'm still drinking, I'm still partying, I'm still lying, I'm still doing the wrong thing when no one's looking, I'm still not taking accountability for my life. And at the time, I was a bartender at the American Grill restaurant back when the Cottonwood Mall was around.
Wow, I love the American Grill.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? A great place, and I was the bartender there. And as a bartender, I'd get tips from the waiters and waitresses that would serve their own customers. And then if you sat at the bar, I was your bartender, and I was really good at getting tips. I would give you your first drink free. I'd always be guaranteed to get a good tip, and I'd get a lot of change, like quarters, nickels, and dimes, and I'd keep all this change in the cup holders of my car, right? And I would use that money for buying pot and buying whatever I needed to, filling up my car with gas. Well, this particular time that I'm talking about, this is about 8.5 months after I had the experience with Rich. And I'm still struggling. I still have this voice in my head that says, you're pathetic, you're no good, you'll never do this. I'm depressed, still struggling, trying to fight through this. And I'm driving out of my neighborhood one day on a beautiful, sunny day, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this little girl selling lemonade. No big deal, I don't think anything of it. And as I drive past, I have this impression come over me that says, turn around and give her all the money in your car. I thought, wow. I had like $40 worth of change in there, and I thought this would be amazing. So I flip my car around, I pull up, this cute little 4th grade girl sitting there, and I roll down my window. How much? She said 25 cents, I think. And I said, okay, I'll take one. So she pours it, hands it to me. I set it on the dashboard, and I tell this little girl, okay, cup your hands like this. And so she does, and I just start scooping all this change into her hand. And this girl starts freaking out, like, no way. I'm like, hold on, I got more. And it takes me like 10 scoops. And I'm getting every little nickel, dime, quarter in her hands. And the last scoop she throws on her table and takes off into the house. And I'm thinking she's going to go tell her parents some dude just gave her $1 million, right? And her impression is tattooed on my brain. As I pull away, Jeff, I start to cry like I'd never cried before in my entire life. Have you ever cried so hard you feel like you're cleansing your soul? Mm-hmm. This was one of those soul cleansing cries. I literally have to pull my car over. I throw it in park. I put my face in my hands and I just sob. And for the first time that I could ever remember, Jeff, I actually felt like I mattered. I wanted to be clean in that moment. I loved who I was in that moment. I wanted to be better in that moment. This lit my soul on fire. There's a beautiful quote by Ferdinand Foch. He says, "The most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire." I was on fire. And I had that all or nothing mentality that I talked about earlier about basketball. It kicked in again, and I thought, if that little girl's there next week, I'm giving her all my money. So the next Saturday, on purpose, I drive by to see if she's out, and sure enough, she's out there selling lemonade, and I pull up, she recognizes me, and she just starts freaking out again, like, oh my gosh, here's the money guy, right? And I give her $30 in quarters. I do this the next Saturday, I give her $25 in quarters, ironically, that I'm earning as a bartender. And I do this every Saturday, Jeff, for the next 2.5 months. And every time I pull away from that lemonade stand, I have to pull my car over and I just sob. I cry like I've never cried before in my entire life. And what I learned in that moment, I didn't know it then, but looking back on it now, that I was giving away my money, but I got my life in return. I'll say this all the time, if you master the first 11 steps of AA, you'll drink again. You master step 12, you'll never touch another drop. What's step 12? Is go out and help someone else. And I know you guys preach that with your kids in the football program that you guys do, that's so fantastic, that you get outside of yourself and go do something for someone else. And I'll tell you, when we do that, we become better people, we become better husbands, fathers, moms, dads, cousins, nephews. We become better football players, basketball players, you name it. And I'll tell you, that's when my life changed. And it honestly was like more powerful than any high I've ever experienced in my life. And I thought, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to make an impact on kids and adults alike. And if I can do that and help them not have to go through what I went through, then I'm going to do it, because I'm one of the lucky ones. I should have overdosed, I've overdosed, I should have died, I should not be here. I honestly am one of the lucky ones. But since I am here, I feel like I have an obligation and a responsibility to make a difference in kids' lives. And again, that's why we're here today, Jeff. And again, I love what you do in your program, because that's what you do, is you make a difference. This makes a difference, and I hope I can add to that today with what I'm sharing.
Well, you definitely added to it, but I mean, people don't realize we're that connection, the team.
Yes.
One of the things about football is we build brothers.
Yeah.
You've heard that that cliche throughout, band of brothers, but you develop this connection with your teammates, because you got to have 11 men going in the same exact direction to make a play successful, both offensively and defensively. Yeah. And yet we have young men, we have families, we have team moms, we have people out there that are amazing. And we had a team a couple of years ago during the middle of COVID take their team on a practice day, and go out and clean somebody's yard. Yeah. We had, Steve Tate. Steve through the Hayes Tough Foundation.
Yeah.
They do some amazing things. I got a little team up at Park City last year that went out and raised money to help a young lady, I believe, with cancer. Wow. And now there's extra proceeds, so they're going to come in here on June 3rd and give that money to Steve Tate at the Hayes Tough Foundation.
That's amazing.
So there's so many great things.
Join us in the UC Extra Point episode number 9 as we continue our conversation with Todd Sylvester.